Welcome everyone to another Conversations in the Void. Here we are, week 6. I can't believe it's been 6 episodes already. But without further ado, I am Graveyard, co-host of this, joined by my off-screen producer, Salem, hiding behind the scenes, reading your comments, putting up questions, and just having a blast tonight. And I am very, very excited for our special guest tonight. He is an author, a screenwriter, and I think producer, and from his bio, investigates in the paranormal. So let's give it up a warm welcome to Brian Fitzpatrick.
Hey, Graveyard. Nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see you. Oh, yeah. Absolutely blessed. You know, I really enjoy doing shows like this. You get to meet new people such as yourself. So,
excellent.
All right. I see some familiar faces in the chat. Hey, let's create in fours. Nice to see everyone here tonight. But without further, let's get into what makes Brian Fitzpatrick tick, shall we?
Oh, nobody wants that. All right, let's do it.
Hard questions. You're obviously a horror movie fan, right?
Big
so
time.
What movie brought you into the horror world? What did you cut your teeth on?
Oh, okay. This is my favorite story. This is how I became a writer in the first place. 7-year-old Brian, 7-year-old me, accidentally watched Night of the Living Dead.
Ooh.
And Mom and I were watching classic horror, Dracula, Frankenstein, those guys, not scary.
Mm-hmm.
She dozed off. Night of the Living Dead comes on, and I am terrified and riveted, and I can't look away. I want to shut it up, but I gotta see how these people survive this in this house. And afterwards, had a week of sleepless nights, nightmares, and just it was a mess. My mom finally said, "You know what? Why don't you try writing some of these stories down, or make up your own stories?" And to kind of help me get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it, and that was the end of it. That's what launched me into it, and I've been loving horror movies ever since like 7-8 years old.
Yes, for me, my first one that I can recall thoroughly enjoying was Child's Play. I think I was
Chucky.
I think I was 4 or 5 when I watched it. And I turned out perfectly fine. No, never mind.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much. So awesome. And you're talking the original George A. Romero one, or the
Yep.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm an old man. The original was all that was available. If you look at it now, it still holds up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And we, for myself and my off-screen producer, we do IT, and you want to download large files to test speeds. Night of the Living Dead is public domain, so it's a perfectly good thing that people download to do. So,
nice.
Yeah, it's a good speed test.
Very cool.
But yeah, I absolutely agree. It holds up completely to this day. It's been what, 55 years-ish?
55 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, you wrote stuff. Did you write stories in the zombie world to get over, or did you just write short stories as a whole?
I write zombie movie story to begin with, but I also went with vampires,
Mm-hmm.
aliens, other kinds of monsters. I mean, I sort of started absorbing as much horror as I could, even at that young age. And I like mid 70s, where there's not a lot of super gory stuff available to kids yet. So I was still touching into the classics. So it was stuff that my parents were like cool with me watching,
Mm-hmm.
but I still let my imagination go wild and wrote as much crazy shit as I could.
Nice. So what do you think is the most overrated horror movie or TV show or comic in your opinion?
Oh shit. See, okay, here we go. This is gonna generate some hate. I have never been a fan of the Friday the 13th franchise. The first one is excellent, but everyone after that to me is a snooze fest because it's the same formula. Jason walks around and there's a final girl who somehow, nobody else struggles, nobody else fights back. And it's like, he's just a boring villain to me.
That's fair. I mean, hey, in number 10, he went to space, so it wasn't at camp anymore.
Well, see, now if I watch that one, that might change my mind. I 5 or 6. So I need to go back and take Manhattan, watch him battle Freddy. Then I might change my mind.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, that's a hot take if I ever heard one. I said for me, it's The Exorcist. It's not. That's my hot take.
I will agree with you. I think possession movies are kind of laughable. I don't
Mhm.
like being scary about them at all because it's so far-fetched fiction that it's like I might as well watch a movie about Santa Claus, and it's so to me they're not good. I will say Exorcist is good storytelling, like it's a good drama. Like the scariest part for me was when she went to the doctor and they did the spinal tap on her and she's squirming the whole time they're putting that needle down her back. I was like, oh my god. Other than that,
I mean,
no.
Yeah. Well, we won't even talk Exorcist 2. That doesn't exist.
No.
So what would you say is the most underrated horror that doesn't get enough appreciation and love?
Ooh. Oh, and this might not, people might not agree with this because it is getting its due now, but I'm going to say Event Horizon. I absolutely love science fiction and horror combined, and Event Horizon is so gory and so intense and got the scares. It's got the jump scares and it's got the moody scares. It's got everything. And when it came out, it didn't really do a lot in the theaters despite the amazing cast. And I think now it's kind of getting its due.
Yeah.
But for a long time, it was underrated.
Now, do you buy into the theory that they went through when they went through the black hole, the wormhole, that they went into the Hellraiser hell and became Cenobites?
I've never heard this theory before. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess if you wanted to marry those two franchises, I wouldn't hate that. But I never entertained the idea that happened. I mean, I guess by the end, Sam Neill definitely looked like a Cenobite.
Yeah. As my producer saying, it's the warp drive. Yeah, they went through the warp drive and essentially opened up the gates to hell and became a Cenobite.
Yeah,
and I love that theory.
I actually like, the more I think about it, the more I kind of like that too. And someone needs to write that movie.
If only we knew a writer.
Barker.
I mean, let's face it. Oh, writer confirmed. Yeah. Yeah. So it's amazing that it's there, and yeah, I agree. I remember growing up in the 90s, people going, "Oh, this is the scariest movie ever." It's a great movie. But yeah, it does not get the love it deserves.
And I talked to somebody who is an astrophysicist and deals with NASA, and I asked him one time, how accurate is it when the one guy goes out into the atmosphere, gets blown out the airlock, and he just sort of curls up into a fetal position. It doesn't breathe. He doesn't freeze to death. He just, has to hold his breath. And he said that is the most accurate portrayal on film of what it would be like to be in a vacuum in space.
Wow.
He says it's not cold like they show in movies. People don't explode like they do in movies. So he said that was actually pretty accurate.
Nice.
So I was like, nice.
That's great. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit more of Brian. So tell us a little bit about MECHCRAFT and how that came to be.
Oh, man. Okay. So MECHCRAFT is a science fiction trilogy, but it is extremely violent at times, and it dips into horror because I can't unmarry the two. When I'm doing science fiction, I'm always thinking of horror. So it started, well, first let me tell you, MECHCRAFT is sentient nanotechnology embedded into certain people's DNA, and they are telepathically connected to the nanotechnology and can summon it forth from their skin, and like liquid metal, think Terminator 2 style liquid metal, and can form it into weapons, tools, shapes of anything they can imagine. So picture a massive group of scientists who have all injected with this and arguing over the best use of it to the point where it becomes a war between three separate groups of ideologies. And it's kind of a stalemate until because all their powers are the same. They've all been injected with the stuff. They all kind of know each other's limits. Right. And then along comes Jake, teenage hero, who's the first ever born with the nanotechnology, and everyone thinks, okay, because he's been born, yeah, it's gonna behave differently, and it's gonna be a wild card, and they're absolutely correct. And so all three of these factions are hunting him down because they want to control him to turn the tables of the war towards themselves. So the first book is just a big action-packed romp and an introduction into the world. So I got the idea for this back in 2014. I read a medical journal article about how in the near future nanotechnology would be to inject into people, and it would fight cancer cells and then deactivate it and flesh out the body. And I was like blown away. I couldn't believe what I was reading. That's such an amazing idea. Right. And then I said, well, wait a minute. What if those nanotechnology was sentient and stayed? And that's kind of where it all came from.
Oh man, don't let Elon Musk hear you talk about this.
Yeah, really. On the DL.
So, I mean, so it's just a trilogy. Is there any more going to be expanded into it?
You know, there is the first book actually began life as a screenplay because my vision was to put it on as a film franchise. But it's such an expensive endeavor that no studios, I mean, I had meetings and everything, but nobody would touch it. They all loved it, but they said, no, you got no fan base. We're not taking the risk. So I converted it to a novel in the hopes of building the fan base and getting those studios to come out to me. Well, the first book became a bestseller for a while there, and then I wrote the second and the third. There is a short story that explores the origin of one of the side characters because I felt she deserved her due. But my publisher, at the end of the third book publication, asked me, "Is there any more MECHCRAFT coming?" And I was like, "No, I'm kind of done." And then after I got off the phone, I was like, "Well, wait a minute!" And all of a sudden, I outlined 3 more books. So there There is more MECHCRAFT coming.
Man, I'll have to. If you're ever interested in converting to a comic book, I know a lot of people that are indie comic writers and artists and stuff like that too. Just another medium. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
I've been aching to try and do that. I just haven't had the time to investigate fully and figure out all the mechanics of it all, and also figuring out the money situation. It's expensive. Comic books are expensive to make, rightfully so, because the artwork is phenomenal.
Yeah,
but I'm very interested in that aspect.
I'll have to get you in touch with our guest that we had last week. He is a publisher he makes his comics called Pork Chop Express.
I love the name.
Yes.
I love the name.
Yes. So they're doing a run called Night of the Chihuahuas, which is what if zombies and vampires, but chihuahuas.
Wait a minute. I saw something about that. I think it was probably on your show, but that is, I love it, and I'm intrigued and kind of scared.
Oh, it's great.
I love it.
I'll have to give you their contact information.
Sure, absolutely, I appreciate that.
So,
one other thing that I forgot to mention. This is a hot take, hot off the press. Last month, got the green light on this. I have been invited to create the MECHCRAFT tabletop role-playing game. It's from a publisher called Storytellers Forge, and they have invited me to make this game. That I've known them for a while. They know MECHCRAFT, and they said, Brian, if any story needs to be a role-playing game, it's MECHCRAFT. They have in-house designers, in-house editors, in-house artists. They said I can utilize as much or as little of that as I want. But starting in 2024, I will be designing the MECHCRAFT TTRPG.
Oh, that's awesome. You have to keep us posted, and we'll blast it across all our media that we have.
I appreciate that. Yeah, dream come true. Really.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. I mean, I love tabletop games. So is my producer here too. We play them a lot together. So we'll have to check that out.
I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to design the mechanics, because the way MECHCRAFT operates in the story, it's like, oh man, I can't use a D20 system.
Right.
I had to come up with something else.
Interesting. So another side tidbit I saw in your bio, and I listened to the song. How did you get someone to make a song about your character, Chemical Straitjacket? How'd that happen?
They came to me. It was in 2020, and the lead singer and main songwriter, Kevin, he approached me and said, "Dude, I love MECHCRAFT. Would it be okay if we wrote a song about it?" And so I was so completely humbled and honored and flattered. Like, how many authors get a song written about their book, unless you're Lord of the Rings?
Right.
But right. So I immediately checked out. I said yes right up front, right off the listen to their catalog, and man, they were good. I love industrial rock.
Yes.
And they are intense industrial, like 90s style industrial rock. And they came up with this song. In fact, the producer for that album is John Bechtel, the keyboard player for Ministry.
Okay.
So he and I had conversation. He and I become friends, and this whole process, they actually brought me in to write a line of the song, which I thought was pretty cool. They said, "Oh, Brian, you gotta get in on this. You gotta write some stuff." So I'm like, I'm not a songwriter. I envy you guys. But they got me to write a line, and it was very cool. It ended up being the lead song on their album from 2021 called Dark Progression.
Nice. So I immediately checked it out. I love industrial. I love rock. It is right up my alley.
That bass line in that song, when like at a minute in, when the bass kicks in, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's impressive to do that. I mean, that'd be that'd be my dream to come true if I was write stuff. But I'm not.
It truly was. I mean, that is a song about, and they did it all about the story's villain, Sasha.
Yeah. Wow. That's kind of going on that vein of sci-fi and horror, talk about the marriage that you have in a lot of your stuff. Why do you think sci-fi and horror meld so well together into a genre?
I think a lot of it has to do with the unknown. So much they go together so well because science fiction often dives into mankind's search for truth or the new thing. And we're always entering the unknown, whether your sci-fi is in space or under the water or whatever we're researching, the Matrix, whatever. It's always an exposure to the unknown, and horror is all about fear of the unknown. And there's been so many good examples of the marriage of that. I mean, like The Thing, Aliens,
yes,
so many films. I mean, so many. John Carpenter does a lot of it too, and I just love, and of course, Event Horizon, sci-fi and horror. So I think that it's just a perfect marriage, and I try, and I don't even try. It just sort of happens that if I'm doing sci-fi, horror sort of creeps in, and if I'm doing straight up horror, sci-fi tends to creep in on it. So I've got a horror script that is an intense horror script, but it's set in a sci-fi setting. So it's like, well, I can't escape it.
Oh yeah, we have my co-host and I, we have that discussion a lot about sci-fi and horror, and where that line, it's not even a gray line, it's so blurred perfectly. I think it's when done well, it's fantastic. Sometimes then you get movies like Life Force, vampires on a spaceship.
I know, and I wish that movie held up better, but because I love the idea, and when it came out, I was a huge fan. I watched it again. I was like, well, it was great for the time.
Yeah. It's always that nostalgia eye that we're seeing when we go back and rewatch stuff. Like, maybe this wasn't as good as we thought it was when we were kids.
Right. But you still kind of keep a little soft spot in your heart because it was nostalgic at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also see on your list, you have a lot of influences with Spielberg, Barker, King, so who's been your biggest kind of influence, would you say, in writing and screenwriting now too?
Oh, that's a good question because so many of them, and this is gonna be an odd one. It's gonna be a really odd one, but I'm gonna have to say David Cronenberg.
Okay.
Because I find, and by accident, so many of my stories end up having secret societies or things going on behind the curtain of normal society, and Cronenberg was the master of that. When you look at Scanners, the old late 70s, there's a secret society of psychics who could blow each other up with their minds. I mean, come on. Videodrome, that creepy movie. It's all about the secret societies, and even his newer stuff. What was that? The one he did all about where the surgery is art.
Crimes of the Future.
Thank you. That was a great movie. That was so weird, and it was true Cronenberg oddness. It's such an odd movie, but the secret societies are there again. So I'm going to say he played a huge role by accident, really. I don't even consciously do it, but I tend to have that kind of thing in my stories.
Nice. Yeah, he's great. His son has done really great things. Have you watched anything by his son?
Yes. Infinity Pool was weird. It was like, the apple does not fall far from the tree.
No. And some news that we heard recently with some online streamer that is going to be selling her yeast to make beer, so you can buy beer that has been brewed with her personal yeast. It reminds me of his son's antiviral, which is where you got diseases from celebrities. That
is insane. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how that plays out.
It's going to be really interesting, but we are going down that path that the Cronenberg family set up. It's scary.
That's kind of scary when he's a harbinger of the future,
Yes.
I would say if I had to name a second influence, it'd probably be Clive Barker, because he manages to take dark horror and make it almost fairy tale-ish. Like it's almost like a grim fairy tale and almost borderline fantasy in a way. And I love his sort of dark, sinister whimsy.
Right, like Nightbreed.
Nightbreed, yes. And that doesn't hold up well either, but it's so good. I love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's we love Clive Barker and all things horror on this channel. It's amazing.
Barker's the best.
So why do you think we have such an infatuation with the macabre? You know, what kind of sets people like us apart from, it's called, normal people?
You know, that's a very good question. And almost like we're almost too close to the sun to realize it. But why am I different? I don't feel different, you know. But but when you do talk to people who are not into horror and they just like their jaws drop open when you talk about the cool shit you love, I think it's just that there's a fascination with, again, the unknown, and maybe even dealing with things like death in a different way. Like we confront it, like we consume it as entertainment because maybe in our subconscious we're grappling with those issues ourselves. I don't know. I mean, that's a deep answer, but I could be just because I love to see some blood and guts. I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
There's something you're just born with it, I think, or you're educated into it by someone. It just happens.
Oh yeah, for my family, I get weird looks all the time. Like, why do you do this? I go, because it's fantastic. It is, and we discuss a lot. It's, you know, you look at horror movies and they are a time capsule because they talk about the pertinent topics that society is kind of afraid of at that point in time.
Oh, so true. That's a very good point. You know, you bring up an excellent point. They are time capsules because especially like in the late 90s, early 2000s, you had like the one with Dustin Hoffman, Outbreak. How poignant was that, and telling of the future. I mean, that was not kind of borderline horror, but I mean, it definitely played on people's fears.
Yes,
at the time. Yeah, definitely.
So I also see that you investigate the paranormal.
Yes. My wife and I have both been extremely fascinated with what happens after we die. We're not religious, but we've experienced enough weird shit that we're like, well, I want to know if we can maybe find out or at least experience something that tells us that there's something after this. And I've always sort of, even as a child, was fascinated with the idea of ghosts and ghost stories. And, you know, when I was a kid trick-or-treating, we'd always be most excited about going to the haunted houses, you know, the people who decorate and scare you. And I always loved that. So it kind of carried into teenage years before there was even ghost hunting. Even when Ghostbusters came out, loved that idea. But, you know, that was fiction. You know, there's no way anybody could ever actually do that. And then you start seeing the original ghost hunters, for example, very original guys who took it very seriously. They didn't have theatrics and nonsense. And I was like, me and my wife were both like, you can do this? You have this hobby? And so we immediately started equipment, finding out what they're using, and we started using it. We joined teams, and fast forward 17 years later, we are still at it and still loving it. And we have gotten some weird shit. We go in with this as a skeptic, though. We go in, if something weird happens, we go, okay, let's try and debunk this. We look for, you know, breezes or loose boards, you know, anything we can do to debunk whatever phenomenon we just witnessed.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if we can't debunk it, then we're like, well, that could be paranormal. We don't immediately assume it is. And luckily, we're in a group now that has the same mindset, where all of us, there's 8 total, and whenever we go on an investigation, all of us have that same philosophy, like, okay, maybe this is paranormal, maybe it's not. Let's investigate. Let's debunk all we can. And so when all of us can't debunk it, we kind of get a little excited because, okay, that was cool shit.
Oh yeah, I'm getting part of a group in my area here. We're gonna try to do a YouTube show called States Unknown, where we go around and do all cryptid sightings,
nice
stuff like that, everything that's supernatural, paranormal, and try to go in with a skeptical mind and debunk as much as we can, because our tag is when you eliminate the known, you're left with the unknown. So
I love it.
So, you know, each season would be kind of a state. So we'd just go to a state and do it all there, and then go on to the next state, next state, next state.
Well, when you come to California, let's talk.
Yes, absolutely. So what do you think has been the best piece of evidence you have found with your research?
We've honestly, if I'm being honest, we've got a lot. My favorite pieces is a really strong EVP we got on our very first investigation. Actually, we went to a graveyard that had a cemetery that had no gate. Like you could go in at night because it's in a small town, just in a town about an hour north of LA called Ojai.
Mm-hmm.
They have a cemetery there called Nordhoff Cemetery, and there's no gates on it. You can just drive in any time of day or night. And we went in there, and it has a reputation for being haunted. So we set up our stuff, and it's fall, so there's crunchy, dry leaves everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we go down and we put on a headstone about maybe 20 feet off the gravel road. We put down a digital recorder and an analog recorder, the old-fashioned little tiny little cassette tape ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Both of those, push both, and say, okay, Nordhoff Cemetery, this date, this time, and then we walk away, and you can hear us on the audio going crunch, 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 walking away. We sit with our group. We're about 20 feet away. You can actually kind of hear our group talking a little bit here and there. We're in a circle, and we're trying to talk to whatever. And when we were done, you can hear my footsteps coming, crunch, 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 and I grab the things and turn them off. Well, when we listen to them back, at 6 minutes and 10 seconds in, you can hear a girl's voice clear as day, kind of doing a soft moan, and it kind of sounds like for like 20 seconds or so, and you can at one point in the middle, it sounds like she's saying mama.
Wow.
And it's so clear and distinct, and we're like, okay, so our first thought is, if it was an animal, a cat for example, we would have heard the crunching of the leaves, because it was just everywhere, and we couldn't debunk it at all. And so that is one of my pieces, because it's one of our first. It was our actual first. And the guy who had the analog recorder, for some reason, his recorder stopped in the middle and then started up again and ended the same spot ours ended in. So we both had about 7 minutes, and yet his has a big gap in the middle of nothing.
Huh.
And we're like, well, how did... And it wasn't one of those, motion activated start-stop ones. It was just you push record and walk away.
Yeah.
So that was mysterious. Like, why did that happen? So anyway, that was one of our favorites. I mean, even to this day, I look back going, "Aw."
Awesome. So we are almost at the time
Already. What?
Yeah, I know. So let's ask some really, really hard questions here.
All right, lay it on me.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I'm gonna have to go with
Yes.
It's so brilliantly acted.
Yeah. So I have to probably know the answer, but practical or CGI?
Practical, but I'm not a hater of CGI when done right. I do have an affection for the practical, because holy shit.
Yeah.
When they do it right, when they do it good and right, it's amazing. Nothing like it.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. You can see, with The Thing, and then the remake / prequel where they did practical, then they covered up with CG, and it just looks awful. It kind of ruined it.
Yeah, I mean CGI is much better now, but yeah, that was kind of like oof.
Oh yeah, the 90s were not good for CG for horror.
Oh, like cartoon blood.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, lost you there.
Oh, I'm right here.
Okay. So if you could work with any IP or franchise, if you can write a story, if you can write a comic, you can write a movie, what would it be?
Oh man, this is going to be completely out of left field, but I would love to do something with Star Wars.
Ooh.
Despite my horror background, I mean, watching Ahsoka recently, I was like, oh fuck, if I could write something for Star Wars.
Yeah,
but I would do like the dark horror Star Wars.
Yes.
Everything I write would be Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly. I mean, what about, did you ever read the Extended Universe books?
No, I have them. I picked them up recently, saying I need to finally get on board with this. So I have them. I just haven't started them yet.
Yes, because there's a species called the Vong that have no presence in the Force, and they can actually nullify the Force. I think that'd be a perfect horror creature to have in the world.
Oh yeah, because Jedis would be down to just regular people again.
Yeah, it was terrifying in the books. All right.
Thanks.
Well, the random trivia. Well, I think you're gonna know this one because just top card was, what sci-fi horror film does a black hole unleash its evil upon actors Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill? I think we know that one.
It's Disney's The Black Hole. No, wait.
Yes.
It's that Event Horizon.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, that was, like I said, I just flipped through it and that was perfect for it.
Oh,
Like,
what a serendipitous situation.
yes. All right. Well, that's about it. This flew by so fast. I hope you come on again and want to come on again. We
I would
love
love
having
to.
you. So give us your pluggables. Where can people find you?
All right.
What's coming up for you?
I am on every social media you can think of. If there's a platform, I'm on it. I don't know how I juggle all that time, but I've managed to participate and engage on every one of them. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, all of them, even the new ones. And my book, I'm under author Brian Fitzpatrick on almost all of them. It's almost the same. So if you do that, you're going to find me. My books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble stores, some in stores, some on, definitely online. Just to give you the cover.
Yes.
My son is a digital artist, and he created the cover.
Nice. Ooh.
And
nice.
So anyway, you can find them online. The short story, there's a digital box set that comes with the short story that I mentioned also as a bonus. Let's see, my movie is coming out hopefully in 2024. I wrote a movie called The SIMIAN Trials. It's an indie sci-fi movie that got produced, and I was lucky enough to be invited to the set as the script as well. And it's drama driven. It's more like a dark Twilight Zone because we didn't have budget for special effects or fight scenes. So I'm like, oh, how can I make this intense? Okay, it's a lot of tension through the dialogue. It's a fun movie, and hopefully coming out early 2024.
Sweet. We'll have to have you on, especially when it comes out, to help promote that for you.
Oh, for sure. I would love to come back. This show is crazy.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian, for joining us tonight. And everyone else, I am Graveyard. You can find us on all social media at Pod Out at Night. Make sure to check this out, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe to this video. The more subscribers we get, the more horror swag we are going to be giving away to viewers. So make sure to share and everything. So thank you, Brian, once again, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you next time on Conversations in the Void. Bye.